Democrats are still smarting from Tuesday's election results. Terry McAuliffe's loss in Virginia and Governor Phil Murphy's narrow win in New Jersey have many blaming everything from critical race theory to woke speak. There's also that tired argument that progressives are to blame for fighting for policies that would benefit most Americans. But look, it just doesn't hold up. And if Republican voters look beyond internet conspiracy theories, they might notice that they stand to benefit from some of these policies. Let's just look at the breakdown of who exactly voted for Glenn Youngkin. Now, he got 57% of voters age 65 or older. These folks would certainly benefit from an expansion to Medicare. The 46% of suburban voters that voted for Youngkin could probably use paid family leave. Those suburban voters are quite frequently a euphemism for white voters. And the 45% of voters who were college educated might have wanted free community college that would help with workforce development. Let's talk about all this. Joining me now, Lynn Nguyen, Executive Director of Run AAPI. Roland Martin, the bringer of funk and the host of Roland Martin Unfiltered daily digital show. And Jess Morales-Raqueto is back with us. She's the Executive Director of Care in Action. Roland, you're the only man on the panel, so we'll start with you, my friend. I've been curious all week to talk to you about what we saw in the election cycle. You just heard President Biden beat his chest and take a victory lap. I'm not so sure that this would have made a difference had this come out before the election cycle, because quite honestly, Republicans were not focused on policy. They were focused on fear-mongering and race. But what's your take?
If you look at the history of Virginia, you've always had this happen where you've had this dramatic flip right after presidential election. And so we've seen this over the last number of election cycles. That's one. Two, Terry McAuliffe ran an awful race. Let's just cut to the chase. I live in Virginia. Okay, my show is based in D.C. I didn't interview McAuliffe until the day before the election. What are you doing? I heard from black folks down in Tidewater, in Virginia Beach, where they did not hear from the campaign. There was no unity rally after the Democratic primary that involved 3 African-American candidates. Second, he didn't reach out to former Governor Douglas Wilder. I talked to Reverend Jesse Jackson Sr. He didn't hear from him as well. McAuliffe ran as if he was going to simply win the election, didn't do the work. But even if you break it all down, this was the margin of victory. 72,000 votes. So for all of these people who said, oh my God, there's this massive blowout, Democrats got killed, it was a margin of 72,000 votes. If you had a better campaign, he wins.
Yeah. You know, you make a really good point, because your show is very popular. A lot of black folks watch your television show. And so it's always striking to me how candidates will leapfrog over spaces where voters listen, because it seems they're constantly trying to center white people, white voters, these independent voters, when you're talking to the base. So it will behoove people to come and talk to you. Lynn, that brings me to you. I want you to take a listen to something that James Carville said. And I like James Carville, and I'm just curious everybody's opinion on this point he makes. Listen, and we'll talk about it on the other side.
What's wrong with this stupid wokeness? All right, don't just look at Virginia and New Jersey. Look at Long Island. Look at Buffalo. Look at Minneapolis. Even look at Seattle, Washington. I mean, just defund the police lunacy to take Abraham Lincoln's name off of schools. Some of these people need to go to a woke detox center or something. I mean, they're expressing a language that people just don't use, and there's a backlash and a frustration at that.
So I'm going to try to be really fair here, because I do think that he makes a point. There are people all across this country who are uncomfortable with what he's calling woke speak. However, who cares? You know, who is going to prioritize somebody else's discomfort over our equality? And what it sounds to me like he's saying is, let's not make the white folks too uncomfortable. Lynn, what's your take here?
Right. And I'm just going to say this, Roland, I can listen to you speak all day. I really could. I have so many thoughts on Virginia, on this past Tuesday's results. I mean, and I'm just going to say this, Tiffany. There are times when I truly feel like the Democratic Party, we sometimes organize better against the left than we have against the GOP, right? Like we got to recognize that. And I mean, we've seen this so many times in post-election night, narrative results, us analyzing this for days. But I mean, Republicans, they are so good at running on emotion, inciting these cultural wars. And Democrats, us, and like I've been on the ground in Virginia, you know, we try to ignore this and we try to run on policy. You know, and sometimes we got to take the L and we got to own it. And that's where I feel like we're going to struggle going into midterms next year. We're going to struggle going into 2024. But as Roland mentioned, I mean, we are really forgetting who we are. And that is just like so much concern for me.
You know, I have to say, I don't think it was a total loss for the Democratic Party this election cycle. I think that's the media narrative. However, I think Democrats had some historic wins. There were a lot of historic firsts that came out of last week. You've got Michelle Wu, first woman and woman of color, elected to be Boston's mayor. Pittsburgh got their first black mayor. Cincinnati, first API mayor. And you got Eric Adams in New York City, second mayor. I am not going to tout Winsome Sears. I mean, you know, I think, you know, sometimes there are, particularly these MAGA crowd of white folks who will find somebody who makes them comfortable, but they are not an authentic voice of the community. And people want to tout that as their diversity candidate. We see you. We don't buy that. But Jess, to your point, or to Lynn's point, look, I think there are some challenges around, you know, speaking this highbrow intellectual speak sometimes. But it wasn't totally bad. I think that is mostly a media narrative. But what's your take here?
I couldn't agree more, Tiffany. We saw that there were hundreds of wins all around the country. My husband is the co-founder of Run for Something, and they saw incredible, amazing, young, diverse, fabulous candidates at the municipal level win all over the country. And I think we should be paying attention to those, because at Care in Action, we have a really clear playbook. Let's have exciting candidates who represent the community that they live in. Let's have them run on the issues that really matter to the people in that community, and let's have them talk to the people in that community, all of the people in that community, not just the ones who are, you know, frequent voters on the voter rolls. When we do that, we win elections all over the country, even in so-called tough districts or red districts or swing voters. When we don't do that, when we insist on going with a playbook, frankly, the playbook that James Carville made, I don't know, decades ago at this point, before the internet was even invented. Of only talking to white voters, of only talking to a very narrow set of voters, and of assuming that we know what they care about, that's when we lose. We shouldn't do that. We don't need to do that. And we have 1 year to get this right. I don't think that any midterm voter is going to remember the Virginia election. I do think that every midterm voter is going to know if we actually made a difference in people's lives. That's what we need to focus on. That's why we got to pass the Build Back Better agenda. That's why we got to get exciting candidates. And if we do that, I'm not worried about the midterms. I'm not worried about the presidency. And I'm not worried about the Democratic Party.
Yeah, exactly. In Virginia, it's interesting. I mean, a narrow vote that they ignored there was the API vote when it comes to these razor-thin margins. And you see this happen. And then the media narrative is Democrats are in trouble. And who do they ask what to do about it? Republicans. It's kind of ridiculous. Roland, I know you want to get in here, but I'm coming to you because I want to switch subjects. I want to talk about what's happening in your neck of the woods, Ro. This devastating situation out of Houston. At least 8 people have died and hundreds are injured after a crowd surge at Travis Scott's Astroworld Music Festival last night. Look, I love me some Travis Scott. Astroworld is like on steady repeat in my house. What's the situation there? Do you know anything about what happened? The reporting has said people, you know, just rushed the stage, rushed the doors. What's the situation on ground, Ro? Do you know?
That is one of the issues that you typically will have at events such as this. Houston authorities are still trying to ascertain exactly what happened. Of course, Travis Scott's team put out a statement that they're canceling the rest of the festival. We have seen these sort of stories before. Certainly, it is shocking and stunning. I woke up to the news, and not only to the news, but also text messages, because I had family members who were actually at the concert last night. They're safe and sound this morning.
Thank goodness.
And so I can guarantee you're going to have a mass investigation. I'll be communicating shortly when we get off with Houston Mayor Sylvester Turner, who's my Alpha fraternity brother, and some others here as well. But it's certainly tragic. I hate to see a loss of life when people are simply going to a concert. And this was a significant event. Astroworld used to be a theme park.
Yeah.
And Travis Scott bringing this festival back really brought a lot of attention and life to the city. It was fully embraced by the city as well. And so it is beyond tragic what took place last night here in my hometown.
Yeah, it's really sad. And you know, Lynn, you're in Houston as well. This wasn't just a music festival. This was something that was more comprehensive. It centered the community. There was community engagement involved. So kudos to him for doing this. But I thought about you when I saw this happening, Lynn, because another part of me wondered, are we really ready to be back at concerts? You know, the Delta variant does seem to be in our rearview mirror. But I know I find myself, I went to a Broadway play this week, and I find myself a little nervous around a lot of crowds. I know you're a soon-to-be mother. You know, how do you feel about being out at these crowded events?
Yeah, I mean, Tiffany, I will say if it wasn't for me being pregnant, I probably would have been there as well. And Roland, I feel you. Like this is my hometown. And it's so not interesting, but I mean, Travis Scott has for a long, extensive history of giving back to Houston in so many different ways, and that's just the culture here in Houston. You see that a lot with artists like Bun B and Trey the Truth and Meg Thee Stallion, even Drake, right? But when we're seeing these accounts, and it's just truly horrific. Like the youngest person injured was 10 years old, right? These festivals are meant for change. It's meant to inspire lives. And so to see something like this happen, and especially now when we're still trying to navigate what this is going to look like during COVID, post-vaccine era, I mean, it's whether it's the artists, whether it's the festival producers, but we need to stop glorifying, you know, fans who are breaking barriers, fans that are injuring security guards and medics trying to get closer to the stage. But this just can't be the culture moving forward.
Yeah,
it simply can't.
I completely agree. Jess, I want to ask you a quick question on Aaron Rodgers. Ro, I'm going to come back to you. Let me just ask Jess really quickly. This controversy over the Green Bay Packers quarterback, Aaron Rodgers is going to be sidelined for tomorrow's game against Kansas City, the Chiefs, after he tested positive for COVID-19. Back in August, he really misled reporters about his vaccination status when he said that he was immunized. Now he's saying that he's the victim of a, quote, woke mob.
Had there been a follow-up to my statement that I've been immunized, I would have responded with this. I would have said, look, I'm not, you know, some sort of anti-vax flat earther. I am somebody who's a critical thinker. You guys know me. I march to the beat of my own drum.
March to the beat of his own COVID drum, and people who kill me with this, I'm a critical thinker. So your Google search is better than the entire world's doctors and scientists. But what do you make of all this ridiculousness? Being a member of the intellectual that he calls the woke mob, what do you say, Jess?
I mean, listen, I go to a hairdresser to get my hair cut because I can't do it myself. I have a domestic worker come and clean my house because she does a lot better job than I do. And I go to the doctor to get my medical advice because Google is not a doctor. And Aaron Rodgers lied. That's why this is coming out. He said that he was immunized and he wasn't. And now he's trying to pretend like he's some culture warrior. He's not. He's a liar. And not only that, that flat earther comment is frankly to distance himself from other black athletes who have come under fire for their political views. And that is unacceptable. He is a liar who also doesn't believe in science and put his fans and team in danger, and he should face the consequences for that, period.
I completely agree. Roland, before we check out, I want to get your thoughts on Carville. We're so tight, the Biden presser made us mess up, but I just got to hear your take on Carville and his comments on woke speak.
I need Carville to shut the F up, because I'm sick of these white men whining and complaining about wokeness when you like it when black folks and Latinos and young white voters and Asians are voting for candidates. How about this, James Carville? How about you go learn how to cut some Lincoln Project type ads with the Democratic Party? How about creating some actual memes? Where's the video this morning touting infrastructure bill? How about you go raise money to run those ads on OAN and Fox News and Newsmax and telling those broke white folks in those various states how the infrastructure bill is going to benefit them? So I'm sorry, James. I need you to shut up and do your job and stop trying to pin it on people who are doing the work.
Well, you know, Roland has strong thoughts. I have to say, I think a lot of us feel that way, though, Ro. And I think it's going to be hard for a lot of people as the changing demographics. You're looking at the screen right now. This is the rising majority of America. And when this group of people starts getting centered, it's going to be uncomfortable for a lot of people. But after we've been uncomfortable for a long time, at this point in history, we're comfortable making people uncomfortable. So thank you to my amazing panel.